Good morning, friends. Today we will learn about important virus which cause disease in the respiratory tract system, that is the influenza virus. So what is this influenza virus? This is a RNA virus and this virus belong to myxoviruses group. Now what are these myxoviruses? So these are the group of viruses which have a common property, that is they bind to the mucin receptor which are present on the surface of RBC. So as the name suggests, myxoviruses, so viruses which are binding to mucin receptor, and these mucin receptor are present on RBC. So they have an important property that they can bind, RBC can bind to these viruses infected cells, and these when the RBC bind there, so they can lead to the clumping, that is the hemagglutination. Now two families come under this group myxoviruses, that is the orthomyxoviridae and the paramyxoviridae. So this orthomyxoviridae has only one virus, that is the influenza virus, which usually cause upper respiratory tract infection. Rarely it can cause the lower respiratory tract infection, that is the pneumonia. Most commonly it is the complication of influenza virus infection that can lead to the secondary bacterial pneumonia. Now what is the difference between these two groups which come under the myxoviruses, that is the orthomyxovirus and the paramyxovirus. So they are very much different from each other, although they are coming under this one group because they have the affinity for the mucin receptors present on RBC. Now the size of orthomyxovirus is little bit smaller than the paramyxoviruses, as it is 80 to 120 nanometer, whereas it's approximate 2 to 3 times bigger in size, that is 100 to 300 nanometer. Shape is spherical or filamentous in case of ortho, whereas in paramyxo it is pleomorphic. Pleomorphic means it can change its shape. Then genome, that is the most important difference which you should learn, and whenever it comes to your mind about these orthomyxo influenza virus, you should know that the genome of this virus is segmented. That means there are 8 pieces of RNA are there. In some of the influenza virus there are 7 segments also, but in case of paramyxo it is a single stranded RNA virus. There is no segmentation of the genome. That is very much important difference between the two, and this segmented RNA is responsible for so many new strains of the virus of so many new strains of influenza is coming, due to which you have to prepare the vaccine every year. Then the site of synthesis of ribonucleoprotein, that is the nucleus in orthomyxovirus. Although we know that usually the viruses which are RNA virus, they replicate in the cytoplasm. But orthomyxoviruses, although they are RNA virus, but their replication occur in the nucleus. In case of paramyxo, it's cytoplasm only. Then genetic reassortment is common in orthomyxo. Why? Because it is the genome is segmented. Whereas in case of paramyxo, it is, as there is no segmentation, so the reassortment means new strain is coming because of a new genetic component. So paramyxoviruses, the reassortment is absent. So these are the few important difference which you should know, and the most important of all these is the segmented genome, due to which the reassortment is taking place. Then comes the morphology. What is the morphology of this virus? So influenza virus, they are of four genera, that is influenza A, B, C and D. They are spherical in shape. Size I have already told you, helical nucleocapsid surrounded by an alveolum. Influenza A and B has 8 segments of RNA, whereas C and D have the 7 segments of RNA. RNA replication occurs in nucleus. Now there are 8 structure proteins, means these are the proteins which help in formation of the structure of this virus. PB12, PB2, PA, NP, HA, NA, M1 and M2. Most important among these 8 structure protein is at your level is the HA, that is the hemagglutinin, and the NA, that is the neuraminidase. And there are 2 non-structural proteins, NS1 and NS2, which help in various functions which are useful for this virus. So they are helping this virus in causing the disease, that is the non-structural proteins. Now the envelope of this virus is made up of lipid, and there are two type of glycoproteins are inserted. One is the hemagglutinin, another is the neuraminidase. Now as the name suggests, hemagglutinin, so these are the peplomers, they are triangular shape. So that is being asked, what is the shape of this hemagglutinin, that is the glycoprotein. So it is triangular shape and it binds to the mucin or sialic acid receptor on the RE. So that is, these are the one which help in binding to the RBC, as well as these HA are helpful binding to the mucin or the sialic receptor on the respiratory epithelium. The neuraminidase, they are mushroom shaped and they are opposite to hemagglutinin. Like hemagglutinin helps in binding to RBC, whereas neuraminidase, they are having the sialidase enzyme. That means they will degrade or they will break down that bond which has been formed. So it will help in elution of the virus, that means removing the virus from that bond. So it degrades the sialic acid receptors which are present on the respiratory epithelium. So hemagglutinin is helping the virus to bind to this, whereas the neuraminidase is helping removing the virus from these receptors. Subtypes, so influenza A has 18H hemagglutinin, there are 18 types of H and 11 type of N subtypes. Whereas the influenza B and C, they have no subtypes, they have not been designated any subtype, and influenza D is non-pathogenic to human. So mainly when we are saying that this new strain, this is swine strain, this is avian strain, so that we are telling on the basis of influenza A virus. Which H, which N is present in that strain, on that basis we are saying it is a swine strain or it is a human strain or it is an avian strain. B and C, there is no subtype, so only B is written, influenza B virus has infected. For influenza A, you have to, when you are doing the nomenclature, you have to tell which H and N is present in that influenza virus. So this is the structure of influenza virus, where you can see the most important thing, that is the hemagglutinin, which are triangular in shape, and neuraminidase, which are mushroom shape. In the center you are seeing nucleoprotein, lipid envelope is there, capsid is there. This is also the structure of this influenza virus. Sometimes they can be put as models in your viva, grand viva, that can be asked the structure of this virus. It can come as a morphology can be asked in the long question of influenza virus, so you should know the structure. And whenever influenza comes in your mind, this hemagglutinin and neuraminidase should strike to your mind immediately that these are the peculiar point of this virus. So here you can easily see non-structural proteins are there, nucleoprotein is there, matrix protein is there. Now what are the antigenic variations seen in this influenza virus? So as I have told you that they have genetic, that is their RNA is segmented, which is responsible for change in the antigens. So there are two type of variation being seen, antigenic shift and antigenic drift. Now antigenic drift, you can see, is a gradual process. Slowly it occurs, and it occurs due to the point mutation. Due to some point mutation, some amino acid sequence changes, and it can lead to some outbreak, which we can see in 2 to 3 years it can happen. But these are minor changes, and so they don't cause a big problem. And when these new variants, when they become 2 or more mutation, then they become significant. And antigenic drift usually we see in influenza A and B, and it occurs 2 to 3 years interval. Whereas antigenic shift, that is a major discontinuous variation which is occurring due to this genetic reassortment. Now this genetic reassortment is mainly due to the segmentation of the RNA. So whole of the like 8 segments of gene are there. So if one of the segment being replaced by swine strain, or one segment has been replaced by the avian strain, so it brings a big change in that virus. So that can be responsible for pandemics. It occurs only in the influenza A virus and it occurs after a long period, that is after 10 to 20 years. So antigen drift is common, which can occur within 2 to 3 years. It's a very minor change, minor variation, which can result only in outbreaks. But in antigenic shift, it is responsible for major epidemics or the pandemics. And it is seen only in the influenza A virus. Now the pathogenesis. So how we get this transmission, as it is a respiratory tract infection. So it's caused by inhalation of respiratory droplet, or they can be by contact with the surface of fomites. Then once the virus enters your respiratory tract, so virus has the glycoprotein, that is the hemagglutinin, which has the property to bind to the sialic acid receptors, and these receptors are present on the respiratory mucosa. So when they bind to this, the virus then enter into the cells, our cells, and they will multiply there locally in the respiratory tract. Sometimes this virus can spill to the bloodstream and can cause the extrapulmonary infection. They will cause the local damage in the cells, destruction, desquamation of epithelial cell, and then can lead to the secondary bacterial infection. So usually the antibiotics which are being prescribed in the viral, although these antibiotics are not working on the viral infection, but it has been seen whenever there is any viral infection, it will lead down to your immunity, as well as it will kill your cells. It will cause it can cause the cellular destruction. So due to which there can be secondary bacterial infection. Therefore, always in some of the viral infection, a prophylactically antibiotic is being given to prevent any post-viral bacterial infection. Now comes the clinical feature. So how the patient will come? Incubation period is very short, 18 to 72 hours, and the patient usually comes as an uncomplicated influenza or flu syndrome. So either the patient can be asymptomatic, or there will be only minor symptoms are there, like you have in the viral infection. That is, you will have fever, dry cough, headache, chills, myalgia, anorexia. And usually it is self-limiting. So when you will take the rest and symptomatic treatment, you will be alright. Now what can be the complication of this influenza infection? So there can be secondary bacterial pneumonia, which is the most common and usually caused by Staphylococcus or Pneumococcus or Haemophilus influenzae. Primary influenza pneumonia is rare, leads to more severe complication. Other complication can be worsening of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or there can be asthma or chronic bronchitis can be exacerbate. Then there can be Reye syndrome or extrapulmonary complications. Now, what has the major outbreaks already taken place in for this influenza virus? So there was a big this pandemic in 1918, 1999, 1919. That was the H1N1 Spanish flu. It was a severe pandemic. Then so many pandemics were there. 1933, 35 H1N1 only. Then in 1957 to 58, it was Asian flu. The strain was H2N2. Then there were more flus were there, Hong Kong flu, Russian flu, and the latest was the 2009 to 2010, that was the H1N1 pandemic 2009. So what is this avian flu? Avian flu, mainly the birds are the primary reservoir for this influenza virus, and all the influenza subtypes, they are found in birds, like HR18 types and R11 type, all are found in the birds. Some of them are being present in the mammals, like the humans, swines, or the horses. Like in human beings, H1, H2, H3, H5, H7 and H9 can be present. H1 and H3 to swine, H3 and H7 to horse. So only these strains are the human strain or yes, swine strain, but new strains are being formed by combination or by the reassortment of these different type of strains. Now avian flu strain, they are highly virulent. I'm talking about those strains which are only primarily of birds, which are not present in the human beings, swine or horses. So they are highly virulent. They possess a protein which is known as PB1F2 protein that targets the host cell mitochondria. So that can lead to high mortality. So whenever there is any avian flu strain, uh, epidemic or outbreak is there, so there is a high mortality. And these bird flu strain, they have the property that they are lethal to chickens. So that gives you the indication if they are dying, so there can be a outbreak of bird flu strain. So major cause of economic loss in poultry, mortality in the chicken. Although in the human strain it has been seen that the mortality is less, they are not so virulent and morbidity is more. Now avian flu, they multiplies in the intestinal tract of birds and they shed through the feces into the water. They do not undergo any antigenic variation in the bird because there is a short lifespan of bird. So these viruses, they don't go any variation in the bird, but this variation mainly occur in the amplifiers, which are the pigs. So the pigs are the reservoir of this influenza. Although birds are also reservoir, but they are not bringing about any mutation, any variation. But these pigs can get the infection from the human also. They can get from the infection human strain. They can have the bird strain. So different strains or their own strain, that is a swine strain. So they all strain will combine with each other and form a new strain that can be very dangerous. And usually these reassorted strains are responsible for bringing these pandemics. So all the human pandemic strains, they are the reassortment between the avian and the human influenza virus in the pigs. Among the influenza A H5N1, that was the most common avian flu strain endemic in the world for the past 15 years. It was first reported from the Hong Kong in 97, spread to various countries including India within few years. Now the influenza A H1N1 pandemic 2009, which was the latest pandemic of this influenza, although the outbreaks are very common, but the pandemic was in 2009. It emerged in California and rapidly spread to the whole world, including the India. WHO declared the pandemic on 2009 11th June, and although we were saying that it was the H1N1 flu, but it was usually it was a genetic reassortment of 4 strains. There was one human strain, 2 swine strain, and 1 avian strain, and this mixing had occurred in the pigs. Transmission in this we have seen in that pandemic that H1N1 is that was transmitting from human to human. It was less virulent as it was lacking the PB1F2 protein. There was more morbidity but less mortality. So we have seen in that uncomplicated influenza, all those mild illnesses there, diarrhea could be there. Complicated or severe influenza was also there, that is the high risk groups, they have secondary bacterial pneumonia infection, dehydration, multi-organ failure. So at that time, the definition has been prepared for those cases. How will you categorize according to their symptoms? So category A, that was an influenza-like illness, that is the mild symptoms of cough, sore throat, fever were there, body ache. So lab testing was not needed and treatment, only symptomatic treatment needed, no antivirals needed. Isolate the patient at home, avoid contact with any other person, also with the high risk person. Category B, in this we will include all those cases which have all the symptom of category A. Along with that, there is a high grade fever or the severe sore throat, or if there is any risk factor. What are the risk factor? Like any chronic illness in the old age, pregnancy. So they will be all the risk factors. Then the lab testing also not required. Treatment is a symptomatic treatment required, but you can give the antiviral drugs may be required. Isolate the patient, confine to home, avoid contacting with other person. Category C include the severe acute respiratory syndrome infection. So where the category B plus any of the symptom like breathlessness, chest pain, fall in BP, or sputum mixed with blood, bluish discoloration of nail, Children who had severe disease by manifested by red flag sign means if the child is not able to feed or showing convulsions, worsening of any underlying chronic disorder. So they all come in category C. You need the lab test, you need immediate hospitalization, you need antivirals, and also you don't have to wait for the lab results. You can go for the treatment, isolate, and or take all the measures to prevent this droplet precaution. So that's all for this lecture. Soon I will make on the lab diagnosis of this influenza virus, what sample we need to collect, how we process it, and how we can transport the sample, and what can be the treatment for this infection. If you have any doubt regarding this lecture, you can ask me in my comment section. And if you really like the video, please give the comments. I really like it when it will be helpful to you. And please share with your friends so that they will also get the information. It is very important for other students also. Till then, thank you and bye bye.